Hello, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to our League of Legends video. Of course, LEC Week 3 breakdown. If you guys are new to this series, what you do here is you leave comments down below. We give out awards. It's subjective though, okay? So I have my opinions. I've just watched the matches. I see what I see. You guys might see differently. I give out 5 awards each and every week as we break down and summarize the brand new standings, of course, post-weekend as what's actually changed. Now, this is a bit different. Of course, LCS, I do the same exact thing. This being because I think we've pretty much solidified our top team so far. After Week 2, we saw a similar trend. This week 3 or this weekend 3 kind of solidifying the same thing so far. Although we did see some very close games, some very great finishes, this week I'm super excited for this episode because I have 3 plays of the week. So far, throughout 5 episodes, I've only ever had 1 play of the week, so this is actually a pretty crazy week. LEC saw some crazy plays. Alongside that, G2 remains your only undefeated team. Of course, Fnatic pick up their first win against the only winless team, that being Rogue. Kind of similar as well, the crossover for LCS and LEC. That was 100 Thieves this past weekend, picking up their only win so far against the winless team Golden Guardians. So coincidence there. Of course, Splice trying to retain themselves in that 6th spot. I think, you know, SK, Origin, Excel, they always are, they're going to be fighting for that spot as well. Fnatic still obviously a potential team to jump in that 6th spot on top of that, but our top 4, maybe 5 teams have been pretty much solidified, and it's been great to see the action so far. Also, very lastly, before we hop into our first award, that being the team of the week or the MVP player of the week, whichever one comes first, I will say I'm going to try and leave G2 out of this episode. The past 2 weeks have been pretty much all based around them. Yes, Perks and Caps are my favorites to choose. I think the entire roster could be MVP candidates pretty much any week we've seen them so far. But alongside that, still great performances from Perks, maybe a misstep from Caps every once in a while on LeBlanc. Besides that, the team looking stellar. I just think it's crazy to say. I think of the entire roster so far, it's probably been Mickey to surprise me the most. He was one of the players I underrated going into this split, and so far definitely surprised me. I think it's a crazy statement to make. This team is looking so good. With Mickey's great performances so far, I still would say he's their weakest member, and I never thought I would make that crazy of a statement. Seeing his performances, and he is their weakest player, this is a team to be reckoned with. Let's hop into the first one though. MVP players of this week were a bit hard to choose and actually define, so I chose 3. And the first one's going to be Abadaga. I don't really think there's going to be in any particular order out there. I don't think he had the best Rise game, so that's probably why I'll mention him first, but on his LeBlanc, the constant pressure this guy actually, when this guy gets a lead in his lane, the constant pressure and confidence he does have was astounding to see the results it actually had the impact on there. I love the pressure all around from Abadaga. I think, you know, the better game on LeBlanc, still an okay game on Rise, but still, when this guy gets confident, his lane pressure is astounding. His confidence, his pure confidence, I love seeing that. So when this team actually gets a lead, that being FC Schalke, which they often are, I would love to see more of this. Yes, you can overstep every now and again, but Abadaga has continually impressed me this week, certainly deserving of a spot, I think, of the MVP role. Alongside him, though, again, I really can't doubt this team any longer, guys, and literally, I mean alongside him, that being Upset, you could also say Ignar, doing a great job feeding this guy. This team has proven time and time again, actually 5 times so far, of their 5 victories, I think one of those 5 was actually feeding Memento, but when they feed Upset on a Kaisa or an Ezreal, this team wins the game. They lock it down. It's been crazy to see how they set him up early on. They snowball those leads and they win those lanes, and they've been doing a great job of doing that. Now, also very lastly, my very last MVP has to be once again from week 1, this time in week 3, being Cabochard. His lane presence is amazing. Alongside that, I think he literally carried this team in game 1 versus Origin. And besides that, of course, if you guys did not watch Vitality's game against Rogue, we'll show you guys their play of the week. The late game backdoor, not obviously led by Cabochard, but his constant side lane pushes, and again his pressure and his presence to soak up damage as well as deal damage. Amazing week for Cabochard. And if I was going to rank all of these 3, it'd probably be Upset, then Cabo, then probably Abadaga. 3 stellar MVPs. If I did miss anyone though, leave a comment down below. But of course, the teams of the week, yes, I said teams of the week. I'm choosing 2 of the 3 undefeated teams this past weekend. G2 is out. We know they were dominant. They had a few miscues. They execute when they need to, and that's why G2 is 6-0. The 2 other teams though that also went 2-0 that very much impressed me, that being Schalke, that being Vitality. Vitality first up, 2 very close games. Let's not get this wrong. Let's not avoid the fact they almost lost to Rogue, and they could have lost to Origin. I think especially the Origin series, that final scoreboard did not foretell how close that series could have been. And then of course you guys will see very shortly, I promise you, next up, that one of the plays of the week was their backdoor late game against Rogue, who at one point in time had the kill lead 12-2. Their comp was just, they were outperforming every single team fight. Time and time again, Rogue was proving their composition, their pick, their draft was going to win that game. Vitality, though, made made the call. They made one of the most impressive plays I've seen all split long to secure themselves those 2 victories, and that's why they're one of my most impressive teams this split so far, as well as this past weekend. But Schalke doing what Schalke do, again, stretching out games even when they probably don't need to, but they secure even further gold leads, even further dominant scoreboards by the end of it. Excel, they had a 15k gold lead by 30 minutes in that game, absolutely insane. But you could also argue their control, their presence against Splice was a very, very clean looking game. They had dominant control throughout the entirety of that, and that is why they are by far and away my 2 most impressive teams besides G2 this past weekend. And again, 2 teams I expect to see come playoffs being those top 3 spots. But also on top of that, 3 plays of the week. I'm so excited. Let me know what you guys think about this. The first one has to be, of course, I believe our first penta of this split. Hopefully I'm not wrong there. Reckless on a pentakill.
The last dance, Prophet finding a good engage. Reckless locked up. Redeem buying a little bit more time, but he's just instantly deleted. Proxy bringing multiple members back. Prophet trying to find anything. Second's in the middle of the team, but he's just going to get taken out. Triple for Reckless. He wants a little bit more. Can he get anything else in the exchange? The Quadra. I cannot believe it. The pentakill for Reckless.
And speaking of Reckless and the Fnatic boys, one of my favorite plays I think I've seen all split long, besides of course the backdoor, which we'll show in a second here. I think I've talked about that so much you guys probably could have looked it up 3 times and watched it by now. sOAZ gets revenge, one of the most dominant games we saw. We'll talk about that in a bit as well. Misfits and sOAZ, a triple kill at the Baron Pit, technically a quad kill with the extended play, which I'll play for you guys right now.
Because there's actually...
Ooh. Oh yeah, no way to get out of that one. He's immediately going to get chewed up. Support goes down. Maybe this is the key for Misfits to get something started. Reckless is there as well. A lot of low health bars, but that's so many spears in the Baron. 3k and dropping. Whippo leaping into the middle of the team. Brock's hoping to steal this one desperately. They're getting lower and lower. Eyes on the Baron for Misfits. They're focused on this one. The knockup comes in. Can he get it? Yes, takes it down in the end. And Reckless now caught out by sOAZ. Hansama taking him down. Flashes over the wall. sOAZ on a killing spree. Misfits find the Baron. Nemesis trying to make his way to safety, but the disdain coming out. The double kill dropping for Urgot. Whippo running to the hills. The triple for sOAZ. It's insult to injury.
And very lastly, if the last play was my favorite play to watch, this one was definitely a close second favorite, guys. Vitality win the game against Rogue with a late game backdoor play. What could possibly spell out Vitality better than this play?
Backing off and they're like, okay, we need to base, we need to counter these waves. This is when Jacktroll and Mowgli just go hyper aggressive, and Jacktroll just barely gets the interrupt off. Mowgli doing what he can. Rogue just trying to get away from Jacktroll, and then the double teleport comes immediately in, and the TP, it doesn't get cancelled, it gets interrupted. I think it gets interrupted by Jacktroll as well, so none of the members are even able to get back to base, and Rogue end up losing.
And as per usual, I get a bit somber when I mention these segments, underwhelming player as well as the underwhelming teams of the week. It has to be, though, if I'm going to name any underwhelming players, I could name a portion of the Fnatic roster. I will name Broxa and Hillisang first. I just do not see the synergy out of these guys anymore. It seems a roster, again, yes, they pick up their first victory against a winless roster as well, that being Rogue. Alongside that, though, a pretty dominant performance, right? They pick that up and you think, oh, we're back at them again, and a brutal beatdown by Misfits. This roster could all be, we're going to see next week how they start out, they could very well be demotivated once again, and I do not see the synergy whatsoever between these 2 guys in trying to feed Reckless. It seems a roster, if they cannot feed Reckless a considerable amount of kills, this roster falls so far behind and just don't have any damage output when it comes down to it. I think especially in that second game versus Misfits, it was actually Broxa, both games on Zach, lacking a presence overall and engagement for this roster, falling behind, and not, again, you could argue, though, the entire roster did fall behind very fast in that Misfits game. Whippo gets caught out once again very early on. The game just snowballs from there on and there out. A team, I just do not see the synergy and communication we once saw, and again, we had that hype up, that motivation for a second at 1-4. They're now back down to 1-5. It feels like ground zero, and the percentages are ever climbing against them. Pretty much this weekend out, if these guys do not split games, if they do not go 1-1 this weekend out, if they have one more winless weekend, we can pretty much consider them out of the playoff race altogether, which is a pretty remarkable statement in itself. Now, very lastly, of course, it has to be Rogue, the only winless team so far, although they almost take down Vitality. And again, I will say a team I think at this point in time has a lot more hope than Fnatic Fnatic does in their roster. Now, I don't think they're better than Fnatic after what we saw out of the performances, but I have seen increasing hope for these players. HeQ was not the underwhelming player this past weekend. I like what I'm seeing from him. If we can get him fed more often, this roster certainly still has potential. Will they make playoffs? I think we can almost all guarantee them not to. A roster that still has hope and can hopefully pick up a few more wins, but certainly throughout the 3 weeks we've seen so far, both underwhelming teams for sure. And I know I kind of scaled both those. They both kind of usually coincide, those last 2 awards. I'll say Hylissang, I'll say Broxah for underwhelming players, and I'll say Fnatic and Rogue for underwhelming teams if you guys did not catch that. But as always, I hope you guys all enjoyed this week LEC Week 3 breakdown. My name is Jake. I'll see you guys back here Tuesday. Make sure to leave a comment down below if you guys thought other teams or players should have won awards. But as always, I'll see you guys back here next week. And until then, enjoy your league.